so that
All right, well, once Cav Boss gets this moved over, I am streaming and I am live. I'll go ahead and wait to do proper introductions until they have rated in the viewers from CAV-CON. But in the meantime, I will go ahead and get some of my stuff ready. All right, so looks like Talon Games has rated in for the chat. So hey everybody, welcome to Sunday, the final day of virtual CAV-CON. I am Party Bear Studios, and we are going to do some more painting. On Friday, went ahead and wrapped up the Tuseki 2. Wound up being kind of more of like a light cell shaded looking thing. I do tend to do stuff very illustrated look, but he's looking real nice. And today I've got a 2-hour block, and we are going to be doing 2 rock calves. First one is going to be a Conqueror, where he is doing the standard Conqueror do the limbo, where I'm assuming that is just bracing recoil from all the rockets and missiles. That one is going to be being done in Clan Tobak Reek, the Warriors, Ba Kik Tumon, the 3rd Regiment. And then we have a Conqueror with his pew-pew guns, and he is, the Tyrant. My apologies, I'm getting stuff mixed up. This is Clan de Con, the Gatherers of Prey, 1st Regiment. So, these guys are going to be in not necessarily similar, but close enough that we can go ahead and save a little bit of time on their color schemes. Conqueror is going to be done with a very, very nice crimson red base coat with these aged bone highlights. And if you have watched any of my streams, you know how much I absolutely love aged bone as a color. It's my go-to off-white for a lot of things. And then the Conqueror is going to be getting kind of like a striped, almost like a fall forest camo, with the base being a couple Reaper Bones paints of Kobold Scale and Ogre Skin. Now, these are going to be very, very similar base coats. And this is going to be really nice to illustrate to you guys how highlighting and shading can change very similar looking colors to have a very, very different appearance. And it looks like Cat's Mini Art has popped in to go ahead and support me streaming, so thank you very much. That is the talented artist that I brag about all the time. So let's go ahead and start out, because I know that both of these base coats are going to require multiple coats. We are going to have some dry time associated with this, and because these are darker bases, we're not going to be doing that really, really focused recess shade that we were doing on Friday. So we're going to be doing a lot more all-over washes, which means that I have the other piece of equipment that will save you an absolute ton of time. And we'll reach it. I have a battery-powered Ryobi fan from my shed of power tools. It's got a nice big lithium-ion battery, and that is going to provide us with a tremendous amount of airflow to help with dry time. So I think I have talked enough. It is just past noon here, so I don't have a drink because I've had enough to drink this weekend. Now let's go ahead and get moving. We're going to start out with this Crimson Red on the Conqueror. Make sure it has a really, really good shake. Some Reaper paints, especially the Bones paints, I find you do need to really shake them up. So that's what we're going to do. Now, Crimson Red is one of the actual CAV paints, much like we were using a little bit last time, the Schwarzenwald Gray. And because we're doing a base coat, great big honking brush, biggest damn brush you can find. If you are not doing a big brush on base coats, you are wasting time. So we're going to go just start applying. Make sure to get it over all of it. And you don't want to necessarily really slop this stuff on because you don't want to eat up detail. These guys are from the earlier generations of CAV miniatures, so some of the detail can be a little bit more on the shallow side. So just be a little bit careful, but this guy that doesn't seem to be too bad on the case on him. He looks like he's got some pretty deep cuts on stuff. I do love how the lighting makes him look almost like an orangey brown. In person, though, this is just a nice bright crimson red. But that's also various different camera and lighting effects, and depending on how bright things are around you. So I hope everybody is enjoying CAV-CON so far. It has been an absolute blast, hopping in the stream whenever I can, saying hi, taking a look what's going on, watching some absolutely amazing techniques going on. I have not quite moved into the mind frame of the cheap makeup brushes for dry brushing, but I think I probably should try it out, if nothing else. I mean, with how much I yam around the right tool for the right job, and if they wind up helping out with a nice softer dry brush, I think I might be giving them a shot soon. So, see how that works. Yeah. I'm dropping stuff. Someone's throwing stuff. Okay. Now, you can probably see this looks a little bit streaky and whatnot. Yeah, Dave Ab says he bought some sheet makeup brushes yesterday and tried it. Huge improvement. Yeah, I need to give it a shot, especially considering I live walking distance from a Walgreens. Let's go ahead and put Mr. Limbo over here. I shouldn't call him Mr. Limbo. He's Mr. Recoil. Let's go ahead and put this fan on. Where's the switch? There you are. Put it on low, because a little bit of airflow goes a long way. So we can go ahead and clean out this brush. We're going to move over to the base coat for Tyrant. Yeah, normally what I've been using for dry brushing, and this is kind of like a little bit on the opposite side of it, I have a couple brushes that are actually this synthetic board bristle, and they're a lot more, they're just a bit stiffer and they're more sturdy. That's normally what I use, but I am always about finding new tools to make my job easier. So let's go ahead and jump over to Cobalt Scale. We got here is our Reaper Bones line. And we are going to go and paint up this Tyrant, at least with the base coat. Now, one thing is, I know it was mentioned in the chat earlier how the Tuseki kind of like started popping up with almost like a cel-shaded look. That's not necessarily, I can't say it's completely intentional. One of the things that as you do paint, style starts emerging. And from a personal standpoint, I am really, really big about people having variant looks and variant styles and all that kind of stuff. So my stuff has a strong habit of looking very illustrated. I typically use deep shadow, stark highlights. I don't blend a lot. I kind of have the attitude if I spend a lot of time on these brush strokes, so I kind of don't have a problem with people seeing them, provided that they're in the right spot and going the right direction. I've done a few models, and I'd like to do a CAV, maybe like a small mercenary company, in this style where I will actually do more of an impressionistic, like Van Gogh type style. What I've done for the models what I do for the models that I have with it are, as I'm highlighting, I'll actually be doing all my highlighting with a small round brush, and it takes forever. And all of them will just be these horizontal lines that are all feathered out. It gives it a very, very interesting, like, impressionist painting look. And I really enjoy that. I like doing that. You can see stuff without on my Insta and whatnot. That's for a different game, so I'm not going to like bring too much into it. Now, one of the things that I do want to go and point out to you guys so you can see that the Cobalt Scale and the Crimson Red, while they're on the palette and while they're on the model, don't really look very different. We're both talking about reds. The Crimson comes out more red, as Crimson tends to do. Well, the Cobalt Scale has a little bit of a brown to it. It's a subtle difference between them, but it will affect the outcome of the miniature. But especially once we start highlighting, that's when things are really going to start changing. And that's when things are really going to make them look unique and like their own special thing. Who knows, if I'm able to finish these guys fast enough, I might go ahead and hop into taking care of that Regent that I wasn't able to finish last time. Just going to get this stuff done. Also, there's just something wonderful about like having these nice bright reds or even dull reds when you're painting rock. I just feel like they just feel like the type of thing where like they would be these bright red CAVs. They want people to see them. I do get the strong idea that the rock would not be all about that camo life. All right, so we will go ahead and put him to dry. And we'll jump back to the Conqueror, who is now, because of that fan, dry enough for a second base coat. So let's go ahead and make sure that our brush is nice and dry. And for this one, I actually, I don't think I'm going to be using this brush for the remainder of the base coats because at this point, I'm going to need to get inside the nooks and crannies. So we'll still have a flat brush, but we're going to go with a smaller flat brush. Start plenty of crimson on here, but we're going to thin this down a little bit more than normal. Palette magic off screen. And now we're going to go ahead and now we're getting that nice, deep, vibrant, beautiful red. So how is everyone else enjoying CAV-CON? I know I've come up with some really good ideas. I know there's all that talk about the oils that I know I need to play around with. right. We're going to be as thorough with this as we like. I'll say I slept in today, so it feels a lot earlier than it actually is. A little bit more crimson red. JS Twitch says he's having a good time, really enjoying the new styles of painting Cav. Yeah, it's I'm absolutely all about that. I mean, there's more than one way to paint, and I think that variant styles make the whole of the painting community better. I mean, some people like to go with like a more traditional, like a layering. Some people like to aim for a photorealistic. I know there's a one painter I know who likes to do everything in like this gray tone black and white with a couple flashes of color, like Robert Rodriguez's Sin City, and his stuff looks really, really interesting. I would always recommend people play around with variant styles to go and see what they like, and eventually your style will emerge. I heard it said that when it comes to style is effectively your personality showing through in your work. So as this cobalt scale is drying, you're seeing it's a lot more brown, kind of like almost a maroon. And this one's not going to require as much base coat touch-up work. Now, the nice thing also is, because with this particular pair, we're going to be doing an all-over shade, followed by some layering and dry brushing on top of that. We're not going to have to be as precise with this base coat as we would normally have to be. This is a step where you can be a little bit more sloppy. Gimli says, it's been fun. What have been able to be in stream. Looking forward to CAV-Ball. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how CAV-Ball works out. It's always interesting to see big stuff like that pop off with laser cutter. The Badger looks really friggin' cool. I mean, it's I'm kind of trying to keep my collections mostly limited to Malvernus, but if they wind up ever coming out with a Malvernus dropship, I will be on that like a fat kid on cake. Okay, so just to give you guys an idea, there is a subtle coloration difference between the crimson red and the cobalt scale, but that will wind up helping because that's what we're just going to build off of. We're going to put these both back in here, and we're going to let them dry for just a minute or two. And while I am waiting, I'm going to clean out our brush. Remembers this bad boy from Friday, the Nintendo script liner. Just because I would actually like to finish this guy up, and I'd like to get all three of them, at least a tabletop standard. We're going to go ahead and pull out the Regent. We got some sepia wash. Still got the receipt on the price tag on the bottom from my local game store. Because I do firmly believe in shopping local whenever possible. Now, when you are looking for a subtler brown tone, sepia is great. It's a little bit more yellow. It's a little bit more thinned down. It's a little bit more muted and subtle. And that's why it works real well for bone colors. So we're just going to do a little bit of panel lining on this guy while we're waiting for those guys to finish drying. Now, one of the downsides is because we're going to be doing an all-over shade on them, we need them to be 100% completely dry. Hence the fan. Yeah, JS Twitch says he wants to see what I do with these very, very lightly colored paints. So when you have a really lightly colored base coat, I know that a lot of people were real surprised with exactly how like illustrated and like cell shaded the Tuseki looked. And it looked a little bit more than I intended, but you know, sometimes you just got to lean into what's happening. But that is also much more likely to happen if you have a very light base coat. That's why I wanted to get both this guy and the Tuseki done on Friday, so you can see what both of them look like with the lighter colors, and then I'll work on the darker colors today. Because they're going to be lighter colors on these two dudes I'm going to be focusing on today, but they're going to be more for accents than anything else. Now I do know yesterday a lot of people were commenting that I do this panel lining very quickly. One of the reasons, like one of the ways I can do this panel lining very quickly is the fact that I know I'm going to be cleaning up with the edge highlighting later, so I don't have to be as neat and tidy, and I can let the capillary action do a lot of the work for me. Plus, just style-wise, because I do tend to be heavy-handed on my shades and my shadows in general, that winds up helping me move faster. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at our boys in red over here. I'm not seeing, just got a tiny bit of shininess here in the back. So let's see if we can. Sometimes if you're waiting for stuff to dry, you just have like this area right here where it's just like a little bit wet. You can take a dry brush and just kind of dab it and spread it around, because that's typically just means it gathered in an area. And then I'll put the back facing the fan. And actually, I think the Conqueror is ready to go. Conqueror moved faster than the Tyrant moved faster than the Conqueror. Let's go, buddy. We are ready to do this to it. All right, we are going to go ahead and make sure that the brush we are using is nice and clean or dried. You don't want any sort of paint contaminating your shades. If you're doing the Games Workshop shades like I am. Now for the Conqueror, because this is more of a brownish one, we are going to use the brown wash. So let's get back to our spilled Acrobat Search shade. Shake it, shake, shake it, shake it. Remember the trick, we got a little bit of painter's tape, so that the way it's actually kind of stuck to there. So we're not going to go ahead and completely spill the paint like I did a couple weeks ago. All right, we are going to have a whole lot on our brush, and we are to this guy. He is just getting a complete wash. We're coating the whole damn thing, the whole guy. Now he is going to be getting that kind of like autumn, kind of like brownish maroon, and more kind of yellowed woodland camo. So, but we're going to go ahead and basically do everything except the edge highlighting of this color first, and you're going to see why there's going to be a big time saving on being able to dry brush. But I don't want to have to be really controlled with my dry brush because, you know, it's dry brushing. And I get to go ahead and move really fast and act like Bob Ross beating the devil out of the his big 2-inch brush when he cleans it. It's nothing funnier. It's fun watching that guy's face whenever he does that. He sits there smacking against his easel. Says he's beating the devil out of it, and just gets that great big smile on his face. Says, "I love doing that." Probably the squirrel in his pocket's really scared, but that's how he rolled. And you guys thought I was going to go a stream without invoking Bob Ross. You are wrong. Okay, so there we go. Now this is going to give us a lot more depth in our shadows. Let's clean that one out. All right, and we are onto this crimson, and it's looking good. So for the crimson, we are going to move away from our neutral and brown washes, and we're going to go ahead and move into an actual red one. It's once again Caribird Crimson. Now this is going to be here to make this guy look nice and bright red. If you wanted to go with a really highly illustrated look on this guy, you could do the same step I'm doing now, but instead of the red, use a black. Don't want too much gathering on that area. Now, I'll be completely honest, if I was not behind schedule on getting that Regent done, I would be having a side project to do while I wait for stuff to dry. That is something I do highly recommend. If you are doing any sort of like real process flow painting, have a side project to work on while stuff is drying. That way you're not having dead time, because I know that is a really big way to slow down your painting and get less productive. It's just having a lot of downtime. All right. Now you do need to be a little bit careful when applying washes like this, just because gravity rules washes. So you need to make sure that you don't put too much on at a time, because otherwise it'll start pooling, and it'll start pooling down here like by the feet. So we have a little bit too much in here, so we're going to go and dry our brush off, and we're just going to dab around to go ahead and get a little bit of the stuff off, especially if it's pooling areas, because it's just been applied a little bit too thick. All right, there we go. I think that's not looking bad. So we will go ahead and put him back over here into the fan. And just to give you guys an idea of like how much that fan helps, like the Conqueror is already looking drier. Like I could probably start hopping in here and getting some edge highlighting done, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. So keep our shades shut. Let's get back to the sepia. Yeah, I saw all of the different stuff that's getting ready to get released, and I'm so happy that the Malvernus aircraft are coming. The Vindicator and the Gas, especially the Vindicator, because it's the thing where we get a bonus for infantry, but we get those free models and squads if we go with that doctrine. But unfortunately, at the moment, because there's no transports available, they'll have to be foot slogging, and that means that in the days of vehicles, they're sitting there walking across a board. Yeah, I feel like I'm moving in the territory of third day at a convention where everyone's starting to just get tired. Go there, everybody's been out having fun and having a few drinks, and by Sunday, most people just want a cup of coffee and a little bit of silence. Being able to sleep in my own bed is definitely helping out with that, but it's still but it's been an absolute blast. This has been a ton of fun. I'm so glad that John's doing this for us and that we're actually getting to do this. I think a lot of people needed this right now, considering all the world events happening. All right, we're going to go and need a bigger brush for that. This rocket pod, we're going to go ahead and we might go ahead and paint that in a metallic just to spice up. All right, and let's go and get these area we missed. Really looking forward to tuning into them talking more about CAV-RPG. Because anytime I get into one of these games, I always like diving into the world and the lore and all that kind of stuff, and RPG books tend to have a lot more of that in it. Yeah, Gimli says it's been fun, and one day I'll actually get to play a game of CAV. Yeah, that would be a good thing to do. I mean, it's got some really, really good concepts behind it. I love the fact that, and even though it's mostly done through special abilities, they have this entire like super level of electronic warfare that most miniatures games just straight up don't have, even though that would be very, very common in technologically advanced civilizations. That electronic warfare would be, killer. And I like how John describes the battle nets. All right, let's go ahead and get on the Schwarzenwald gray. Where is my black wash? Where did you go? Are you hiding from me? You're hiding from me. No, you're not. You're hiding right in plain sight. I want to go ahead and kind of zoom out a little bit. My fiance and I both work in the same studio here, and she's always teasing me because she is a much more orderly painter than I am, and I've got the creative chaos happening. As I bump my head again. All right, so we're going to go ahead and apply this Schwarzenwald gray, the Nuln Oil all across the Schwarzenwald gray, as well as the blade steel. Now, these all-over washes work better when you're dealing with dark colors, and I'll go ahead and explain why once I move into the dry brushing. I can actually show you. With the light colors, I tend to be a lot more focused, just because you can see a lot of the shadowing better. You can shade darker in with more contrast in light colors than you can in dark. So the shadows become the shading becomes a much more important part of what's going on. Meanwhile, with dark colors, it's the opposite. It's the highlights that become very, very important to have spot on. At least that is what I have found. I could be completely wrong on that. I'm just a dude with a paintbrush. I have not been to art school. There are a couple art schools in town. I thought about just signing up for a class or two to kind of just get a little bit more professional, like a teacher-led instructor context behind my work. Might be fun too. Actually like pick up canvas painting or something like that. All right, so we got the Schwarzenwald gray, the black on the Schwarzenwald gray on him. So let's go ahead and move over and see where we are with these mad lads. Okay, I think the Conqueror, yeah, look at that. That's one of the nice parts about having that fan, is that it helps dry things out like crazy. So we are going to go ahead and welcome to another nice little painting tip and trick. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the lid to my wet palette, brought to you by Ziploc. We're going to go and start with a dry brush. One of the things about dry brush is that it actually helps if your paint is a little bit dry or tacky. We've got the cobalt scale. Now that we've done the shading, we want to go ahead and bring this up a little bit, so bring the color up more closer to the original cobalt scale. So because it helps for the paint to be a little bit dry and tacky, we are not going to put it on the wet palette. We're going to put it on a dry palette. Side note, when I'm doing things under my impressionistic style, I do the same thing. I don't use a wet palette at all. We're going to go and pull out one of my synthetic brushes. This one has actually this has seen better days, but I love it so much. I'm going to go and make sure the bristles are working properly. Actually, I don't think we're going to use that one. It's getting a little bit crunchy. We'll use this guy. It's a bit bigger, but brushes are kind of soft, but they will hold up better to this. So we will get a whole bunch on the brush. Let's bring it in camera so I can show you guys how this is going. Get the paper towel, because I don't want too much. We're going to be just really quick and dirty with this. Now the nice thing about this, because this is going to give us a nice softer and smoother transition, and with the darker colors that winds up helping, keeps things a little bit more subtle, so we can get some really, really sharp highlights to accent stuff. But as you can see, a quick dry brush, and we are moving back up into the territory of what that actual cobalt scale looks like. So it's not going to be too dark anymore. And voila, we got that nice little kind of reddish brown maroon of the cobalt scale. Taking a look at the Conqueror, we have a tiny bit of pooling that's happening. So we're going to have to first off clean out this brush. So let's go ahead and dry it. Let's go ahead and just soak up a little bit of this wash. Not too much so we're not creating like tide lines and pooling and whatnot, but we'll go ahead and just get that a little bit from the particularly bad spots. If you're doing a dry brush, you just want to make sure everything is nice and dry. So while we're waiting for that, we're going to move up to the next step of the Tyrant. Let's get my brushes out of my water, and I'll be a good artist and treat my paintbrushes right. All right, and now this big old dry brush. Now you're going to have to dry completely, so we will not be able to use you for the next guy. All right, so let's go ahead and start getting these stripes. And that's a fact, Jack. All right, ogre skin. Shake it up real good. Now, ogre skin comes off on the palette as being very, very yellowed. Right here. So we're going to go ahead and move on to another brush that I haven't used yet with you guys. This is a 1/4 inch angle shader. Comes to like a chisel point. I know it's an angle shader or chisel shader or something like that, but it's along those lines. If you go to the brush store, you'll be able to see them. But we're going to go and use this to go ahead and start painting these lines now. Jay is Twitch, still watching. Awesome. Thank you very much. So for a couple things on this guy, we're going to be doing like a diagonal striped camo pattern and trying to keep it as random as we can. Now, when you do a camo pattern, part of the point of camo is that it's not a pattern. The human eye is hard-coded to identify patterns even when none exist. So you want to keep it kind of jagged and as non-conforming as possible, because otherwise something will look too regular, your eye will be able to see it immediately. So we're going to go ahead and do this. Now, because I was a little bit concerned about the cockpit because I want to do these cockpits in that same black that I did the Tuseki. But I think it'll work perfectly fine, so I'm not going to have to be too careful about that. I was going to say keep the ogre skin like away from the cockpit or around the cockpit. Now we're just going to go ahead and create these lines. Now this, we're going to go ahead and you can keep that. Now, one of the nice things about the angle shader is the harder you press, the wider the line will be. So you can just vary it. And if your hand shakes like mine does, then that'll actually help you. And that's really what we want, is just some really irregular diagonal lines. You don't want it to be neat. You don't want it to be tidy. It's camo. It's supposed to be off. Now let's go ahead and make some of these like not uniform in so it's not really quite a tiger striping. It's more of just these like diagonal, like autumnal forest camo. Because ogre skin is kind of a yellowy color, we are going to have to go over this again. One thing, and I know that James can go ahead and attest to, yellow is the devil, and yellow paint sucks, all of it. Yellow paint has insulted me personally and says unkind things about my mother. I don't know why I keep using it, but I do. So what this means is we're just going to have to, no matter how even and tight and like nice we make this, it's going to take more than one coat. We're going to use the big brush to go ahead and get kind of like the basics of the pattern and where we're having this stuff. But we're going to have to use a finer brush in order to actually like neaten stuff up. I'm sorry, I cut back on my coffee intake this morning so that my hands wouldn't be as shaky. Okay, so we've got the basics of that. You know, let's widen this up in some spots. There. All right, let's go ahead and move over. We want a nicer brush now. Let's I've got, this is a size 0 Kolinsky sable. It's really good for layering. Kolinsky sable is fantastic for layering. One of the other keys to yellow is you do want to make sure that, especially as you're neatening stuff up, you do want it to be relatively thin. Yellow, there is no way to get over it other than just you are going to have to apply multiple coats of this stuff. I am currently doing it over this brown, which is a whole lot better than doing it over a black. If you want, this is going to wind up going for a more kind of, a little bit more muted. I know Ogre Skin, it is yellow, but it dries more like a kind of an ochre or a mustard. Which helps. But if you really want to paint yellow, try to get it over like a khaki or a brown or a mustard or an ochre, one of those colors that it's like, it's not really a bright yellow, it's more of a brown with yellow undertones, and that'll help out tremendously. Now, doing the camo pattern on this guy is going to wind up being the most tedious thing you guys have watched me do this entire convention. Because we're going to have to be careful with how we do these edge highlights. We're going to have to be careful because we're going to have to go through and actually do some recess shading on these yellow areas to neaten up. But like so many things, the tedium is so worth it when you finally see how this is going to look at the end. I know I dump on painting yellow a lot, but don't be scared of it. Learn how to paint it. It's got a reputation. But once you can figure out how to do that, I mean, it's a bit of a flex because a lot of painters are scared of it, especially miniature painters. God, I need to get a better camera. This thing is blurring out like crazy. Now, one of the nice things about doing kind of like a yellowish camo pattern like this is that it's if it winds up looking a little bit uneven, that's perfectly fine. It's supposed to look uneven. You want it to look uneven. You don't want to layer on this paint too thickly at a given time because you can run into problems doing that. You just want to make sure that you are getting it nice and covered, and if you have to go back for a third coat, go back for a third coat. Yellow just requires a bit of patience. This is not where the magic happens, that's in the edge highlighting, but it is going to look, still going to look real nice on this guy. Well, if for any reason there does wind up being a live CAV-CON, instead of going over to ReaperCon, you guys come here to Orlando. I will show you the best food in town. Because I firmly believe in good food. All right, let's go ahead and finish out this side. When I'm doing patterns like this, I try to be as systematic as possible and limit my desire for creative chaos. And this guy right here looks real bad. Thicken it up in spots, and we're just going to make sure we got that nice, even, thick line. Okay, we're going to set the Conqueror aside for a minute. It's already looking better. So JS Twitch is asking me what I like locally. I like a lot of things locally. There is... actually wound up going there with a friend on Friday after my stream. There's a German place called the Willow Tree Cafe at Hollerbach, and they are absolutely fantastic. There's an Irish pub near me with actual wood panels on the wall called Fiddler's Green. I love them. There's a bunch of really good Italian places. Orlando has a very high population of various Caribbean and Latin American cultures, as well as East Asian, specifically like Korean and Vietnamese. So we get a lot of fusion cuisine. There is a... oh, by the way, we're going to go start dry brushing. So we're going to go back to the Crimson Red. We're going to dry brush that Conqueror. There's a lot of fusion cuisine up here, so we'll get a... there's one place that's like a Latin barbacoa slash Vietnamese place, and it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's probably the most quintessentially Orlando restaurant there is, and it's normally what I tell people to go to if they're trying this, if they're getting food here. So now we're doing the Crimson Red on this guy, and we want to be, just because this is a bit lighter, we are going to be a bit lighter with the dry brush. Let's try to keep it in frame. Bad streamer. Okay, and that's going to even everything back up. Let's go ahead and do a little bit more. All right, let's brighten that up. Okay, we got Crimson Red on the Conqueror. You know what? Since it's dry brush day, this is when I probably should have a cheap makeup brush nearby, but I don't have one, so I'm just going to take an old crappy brush, and we're going to build up on that Schwarzenwald gray. We don't need as much on this one because we're not covering the entire CAV. And you are good enough. Okay. Keep bonking my head. I've moved this thing up and I'm still bonking. Now this, we're just trying to lighten it up a little bit from the wash. It's a dark gray, so it's going to be dark to begin with. Come on, let's keep this in frame. There you go. Brightened up that Schwarzenwald. All right, let's go back over to this guy. And it is time for playing with more yellow, which means third coat. Let's go back to our size 0 around. I just realized, judging by everything, it's the this guy's probably going to take more time than anything else I've done this week at least. Now this one, we're going to keep this layer really, really thin, because the main job on this is to keep try to thin down these brush strokes to make it look like more of a fine and hard line to get that camo pattern effect we're looking for. So I think this is probably going to be the last coat we're going to need, and we're not going to do it over all of them, just the ones we think we need it. Because that's another thing you can do with yellows. You can apply this paint too thick, and it's going to look chalky, and it's going to look nasty. Yellow is a tricky, tricky, tricky color. Yeah, last night I wound up having doing my normal bi-weekly hangout with some friends. Had them over to play some board games, and we got delivery from this place called Chicken Fire, which does Nashville hot chicken tenders. And I don't know what they put in their food, but the tenders are giant and amazing, and they are blisteringly hot. Like they're the type of thing where you open up this box, and it smells hot in the house. Like they look angry. Okay, I think that is looking a lot better. So we've got a nice solid base coat. We have some shading on the red. Let's go ahead and move on to the next base coat. We've got this guy, and I'm going to have to go ahead and look at my reference sheet that was given to me. These guys are aged bone highlights. So we're going to be doing some accents with our aged bone. Now, aged bone has great coverage. Oop. Just saw a spot I missed the dry brush on. Really got to get that fixed. Got some crimson red. Didn't dry brush the top. There you go. Okay, fixed. All right, so let's take this aged bone. Shake, 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 shake. Go shake, 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 Sonora. Shake your body right. Shake, shake, shake the paint up. Shake it all the time. All right, now this is an off-white, and I've one of the reasons why I like aged bone is that it doesn't tend to clump up like a lot of other whites do. I think it's really more of just a really, really light, warm gray. So let's go ahead and start applying this as an accent. Now, one of the nice things about doing accents on like calves is because so many of these actually have like lines and armor plates. Like you actually even get a nice little guideline of where to put them. Super useful, and I like doing it that way. Okay, so here is the other question for you guys when I'm doing this. Considering that this is a rock fire support mech, a rock fire support cav, how symmetrical do you think this would be? Like, I know the rock like probably want to be seen, but do you think that it would be perfectly symmetrical across, or do you think that there is a culture that values asymmetry in their aesthetics? We're just going to go and put a couple more like that across the model. I like doing, when I'm doing accents like this, I like doing them on knees. Knees and elbows, because it's the type of thing where it's like, it just adds a little bit of that character to it, and that's really what we're doing with this, is we're adding character and breaking up the red. I'm probably going to go and keep this relatively symmetrical just because that's kind of how I think. Because I am human, and humans are like symmetry, because we like patterns. So jump in the line. Rockets on target all the time. Okay, I can't see you jump in the line. Shoot the rockets all the time. said make the strike point, make the strike point right. Okay, we're going to get as far back into this crevice as we can, and this is an area where I should have planned this out a little bit better, and I should have done sub-assemblies. But I didn't. Looks like my finger took a little bit of that off here, so we'll go and replace that. Let's get the bottom of this guy. Okay. Let's get some of the bone white around his weapons. We got it on his knees. Let's add a little bit to what I assume would be the calf crotch. Oh. So a lot of times when I do accents, I'll try to focus around like weapons and areas that are raised that would just kind of help draw attention. Let's make this guy a little bit asymmetrical. Let's put cut of the white here. And let's go ahead and make this side with more white. All right, and then finally with our accents, do not neglect the back. It is really, really easy to want to neglect the back. Okay, there we go. So that looks like a little chunk of accents. Let's go and get it. Okay, we got that on that. Let's put a little bit more on the weapon here on top. Just because we got that nice thick cut detail on that top. So let's make sure we're playing around with that. All right, there we go. And just one tiny bit more. There we go. Right. Let's put you by the drying fan. Crack my knuckles and stretch. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump onto this guy right here. All right, we're going to go. We did the brown wash on the whole cobalt scale, so we're going to go and do the brown wash on the some of this panel lining on the yellow, the ogre skin. So let's go ahead and get you there. Let's go and get our script liner. Let's bump our head on the light like we do so many times. Now this step is very, very important when it winds up coming to the all this yellow, because what this is going to do is it's going to, even though there's that camo pattern, this is going to tie that camo to the cobalt scale of the rest of the model. So it's going to look like it's painted on, and it's not going to look like it's out of place. I'm just going to go through and make sure all of the recesses on the yellow spots are taken care of. let's go over here to this thing, kabam and kabam, just really, really quick. On these rockets. Every time I wind up hearing the rockets, I think rockets. Which also makes me think that whatever their morale is, that they have a cadre of like a performing rock can-can dancers that do the high kicks called the Rockettes. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, I did that. Because I'm assuming that they have to do something to help the morale of their soldiers on the field, even though they like fighting. Still imagine it gets tiresome after a while. Maybe instead of a way of boosting morale, they go and use it as like a reward for fighting well in battle. It's because I get the idea that the Rock aren't like aesthetic warrior culture. I don't know why, but I always get the idea that they're rather indulgent. They don't have a lot of like societally acceptable emotional outlets, so they have to do the ones that are more what we would consider to be maybe I don't know the right word to put it. I just get the idea that even their entertainment, they would be like aggressive. Is it that James keeps saying on the streams we're going to wind up developing rock culture, whether John wants it or not? All right, so that looks actually pretty good for clean. Oh, missed one. Haha, missed one. Yeah. So yeah, we are looking even better with that striped camo scheme. Ghibli says they're the Dothraki of the CAV universe for a Game of Thrones comparison. That is a good thing to throw into the mix. I don't know if I can really like compare them to anything specific in things, but I kind of get the idea that they're like somewhere in between like JS Twitch, yes, the Rock comedians for the win. I think that the Rock would just probably have, as far as like the comedy goes, just this very, very dark, super dry form of humor. Like, I just get the idea they would be making stuff that we're like even we can see it as being funny, but everything is just super, super wrong, dark, dry, deadpan humor. That's kind of how I imagine that their popularity would be. But then again, also, I mean, there's probably like variations within the Rock Empire by itself. I can't imagine that it's a particularly a homogenized culture. All right, let's go ahead and do a little bit of cockpit work. So at least get the base coat of the cockpit done so we can start the edge highlighting. The German children's stories of comedy. Yes, that's exactly what they would probably be. And we're talking about like the old Grimm's fairy tales where like Cinderella like involved like feet getting chopped off and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's exactly what I think they would be like. Okay. Let's get a thin dark elf shadow on these cockpits. Which actually almost makes me think like a lot of their art would be very like lacking in subtlety, like a lot of bold like cubism or maybe even like Rococo and that kind of stuff. I love the idea of rock teenagers rebelling by going through a pacifist phase. Jay's Twitch, something like, "Oh no, you killed my family again." Cue laugh track. Yeah, I like that. Actually, the more I think about it, I like the idea of like there being an underground movement of rock teenagers who are like trying to resolve their problems with their words instead of violence, just to rebel against their conformist parents who want them to fight all the time. Okay. What are we going to do next? I think we are probably ready to start on edge highlighting. So we're going to go and start with the easiest one first, which is going to be the bone on the Conqueror. Githmar, an underground discussion club. Yes, they actually teach logic and debate in underground clubs filled with smoke and non-alcoholic beverages. All right, we're going to go and move from aged bone to polished bone. Now, this one, I want to go ahead and take a look at it. I might need to take a step up to even lighter, but that's the thing about whites is that when you wind up looking at different off-whites next to each other, individually they just look like a white, but when you look at them next to each other, you can see the color difference between them. Okay, let's make sure this is thin. Which actually, that almost makes me think the first rule of discussion club is no one fights about discussion club. Oh, I love that. I love that. You do not fight in talking club. I love that. And this is immediately making me think that there is like somewhere in rock society in the counterculture is like really beatnik. Like they're all about like peace and ending wars and discussing things, but they just can't get any sort of a foothold in the culture. And they drink things that are they take drinks that are like deliberately smooth. They sit there, recite beat poetry, and drink smoothies. That's rock counterculture for you. They have killer smash poetry sessions. Oh my god, rock smash poetry has got to be the pinnacle of their form. Because like I'm not entirely sure what smash poetry is, but I'm relatively sure it has something along the lines of poetry being read in a very aggressive way. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and in areas where I have a larger panel for the accent, I'm going to go ahead and apply this polished bone a bit thicker. And not like thicker as in paint, but thicker as in the lines are going to be thicker. And I'm going to have to do that for a couple of reasons. I'm going to have to go back because it's a white on white. I'm going to go and have to really pump up these highlights and accents. Yeah, Gimli says that's your limited. Like I am sure that I am being horribly reductivist, and if anybody is in the chat who is in fact a Smash poet, please, please, please come in and let us know how ignorant we are and what we're doing wrong. Oh God, Rock Discussion Club. I like that. I like that a lot. I'm trying to keep this in frame while being So there you go. Punk rock is all about pacifism and discussion. They're using the non-rock power of Aristotelian logic and Platonic idealism imported from Terra. Let's go ahead and it is amazing. Like when you're in person, I know with the lighting and the camera, you can't really see the highlights of the aged bone and the polished bone. But I always love how like you can just see the differences on them. But I know I'm edge highlighting, but I'm keeping these a lot thicker because I'm going to go and bring them up one step higher as well later. And it's getting thick, so we need to thin it down. Kithbar says, "Damn it, son, you've been using stims and talking through your differences again, haven't you?" Well, the thing is, as much as we joke about it, I mean, I'm pretty sure that if you like take a look at rock counterculture, and like just compare it to a lot of um, like 60s, 70s, like anti-war culture and like hippies and beatniks and that kind of stuff, like it probably resembles that quite a bit, and that would be a nice little like cultural basis to like build off of. All right, so we're looking pretty good on the accents on that. Let's go ahead and put in here. It's one of the things I do like about being able to jump from item to item like this, is that I can just put stuff in there, and even if it doesn't necessarily need dry time, I can give it dry time. All right, we are going to go ahead and highlight the yellow, the ogre skin. I'm going to go ahead and jump up to a Reaper Golden Blonde. This is more yeah, JS Twitch says, food for the CAV RPG. I am happy to go ahead and toss out ideas and discuss stuff on Twitch channels with you guys. It's fun. It's fun to sit here and talk about, do thought experiments about various aspects of rock culture. I do love how we've kind of like hopped onto the rock culture as being the one that's like, just because it's so different, we'd maybe it's because like they're like the primary antagonists. Okay, let's go ahead and make sure that this is nice and thin. Now I'm going to go ahead in this because I don't know if this is going to be the right color. I'm going to go and apply it to a couple spots and see how it looks. So, oh yeah, that's perfect. Now this is another trick that you can do. This will help. Once again, I tend to use deep shadows and stark highlights. That's kind of like the illustrative style that I keep talking about. But especially for something like this, it works. But one of the tricks of using yellow, of painting yellow, is to try to avoid using actual yellows as much as you can. Go ahead and paint around the problem, everything surrounding the yellow. For that, you can use mustards, ochres, khakis, blondes, that kind of stuff. Okay. Yeah, this stuff is really thickening up. Now I'm being very, very careful that I'm only doing these highlights on the yellow parts, and this is it's gonna add a little bit of time to this guy, but considering that it's still effectively like primarily a two-color model, it's not gonna add so much time that this is like outside the realms of doable within our time frame. Okay, well, it's looking good. And we rotate 90 degrees and keep on going. Let's take care of our horizontal lines, and we'll take care of our vertical lines. Yeah, it's funny. I know, like, I remember a while ago, I think I heard in a CAV HQ where you guys were talking about the Conqueror with the idea of it being a rock fire support. And, like, what would it mean to be put in rock fire support? And I kind of get the idea that I don't think that the fire support would necessarily be like the really, really crappy duty. I think like the attack guys, like those and like the dictators and the emperors and that kind of stuff, those would be like the elite, like glory hogs of the rock army. I think that probably fire support would still be okay because they're, they're still getting to fight. I think that probably the people who would be the like what's the crap duty that nobody wants would probably be the recon guys. Because like, what do you mean all I'm doing is targeting, locking, and tagging? I don't want to do that. I want to shoot stuff. Okay. And I remember why I liked the blonde hair triad for my impressionist stuff because it thickens up so much, and I like having a little bit of a thicker paint for doing that. All right. Well, I'm surprised. I am liking this guy a lot more than I initially thought I was going to. Like, I am my personal stuff is Malvern. It's just because I like those models the most. Um, which I do find it funny that even though like I like the idea of the Malvernans and I like the models and I like the fact that they're like the most alien of everybody, I still think it's hilarious that the idea of fleshing out the rock as a culture winds up being far more interesting to me. Let's go and keep on doing this. We are almost done with this layer of edge highlighting. And I wouldn't be a Party Bear stream if I didn't thump my head against my light all the time. You could just get a zoom lens for the camera. That might help. All right, so here's a question for you guys. These guys are going to be in red and either the like this yellowy camo pattern or the red and bone white. What color are their rockets and missiles? Thinking I might go ahead and go crazy and do them more of like a purple, just to go ahead and give them a little bit, make them stand out. I don't want to do them blue because then this guy's going to look red, white, and blue, and then Even though there's a lot of brown in this red, he's going to look very kindergarten classroom. And I don't want to disrespect the rock CAV by making it kindergarten classroom. All right, I'm going to go and step away from this guy for a minute so I can just keep cycling through and keep myself looking at different stuff. Let's hop back over to the Conqueror. Now we are going to go ahead and try out for the highlight. We're going to try either cinnamon red or fire red. I think I'm going to start with fire red. I'm going to see if that's too light. I know fire red tends to be a little bit more of a subtle paint, so we're going to go and see how that looks. JS Twitch says, I would keep it understated, but the rack might paint each one a different color. They might. I mean, that would be... I think they would find that funny. I think that would be a perfect example of rock humor where they have like these rainbow missiles flying up to kill things. Ooh, this is bright. This is bright. This might not be the right color. No, that'll work. That'll work fine. That'll work fine. It actually pops up on the camera, and that's the important thing. Right, so also, I know this stuff as it dries, it tends to darken up a bit. There's still part of me that every single time I see a rocket or a missile, I want to paint it with a yellow tip with a smiley face on it. Have a nice day. How are we looking on time? I got another 40 minutes left. I think I'll be able to get all the edge highlighting done. I might have a little bit of a touch-up work to do on the bases and whatnot I'll have to do off stream, but I think we're going to be pretty good shape to make my goal for these streams. Now, because I'm doing such a lighter red here, this is making it look a lot more red. If you really wanted to make this look like really bright red, you could do this edge highlight with almost like something more in the orange. James is saying, now we need a rock paint scheme like 60s hippie bus. Yes, the like you do a Volkswagen bus or Herbie the Love Bug rock regiment. Oh my god, how could you do like a psychedelic tie-dye type pattern? It seems like a logistical nightmare, but it would be so much fun. Okay, I think I'm going to paint in the inside of this metallic because it looks like a bunch of metal parts. Yeah, you can see like farther up, it's starting to calm itself down with the red. There we go. All right. Yeah, I do know there's that, I think it's Adon Regiment, where they got the smiley face with the bullet holes in it for double trouble. I have a very, very difficult time not painting that kind of stuff on missiles and rockets. I think once I finish painting and I'm not having to worry about the potential of shaky hands, I'm going to have to sit here and pour myself a great big cup of coffee again. Because I'm being a lot quieter and less chatty than I normally am. Blame it on the chicken fire last night. Chicken fire. Personally, I'm really glad that I was able to get all these guys primed yesterday without running into too much trouble. I really at some point need to set myself a priming studio indoors. What I need to do is just get an airbrush. I've got the compressor. Just need to get that so I can use the Style and Res primer. Don't have to worry about running into a particularly humid day where my coats decide that, hey, no, we're not going to function properly today. Well, I know. Once I'm vaccinated, I will be pushing CAV as much as I can at my local store. Pretty well known there in the community, so I think if I start asking people if they want to start playing, they'll hop on. I know one guy got a starter set got a starter bundle for the Elmitherol, however you pronounce it. The Space Russians. Well, Forge, I've heard some good stuff about Style and Res, and I had to pick some up. Yeah, it's. I know James uses it. It's it's like a common discussion topic in a lot of painter groups. They keep on talking about how good Style and Res is as an airbrush primer. And personally, I like the idea of it because I run into problems priming outside when it's particularly humid, and I live in a swamp. Like, that's one of the things about living in Orlando, and what a lot of people don't know until they come here and they step out of the airport, and it's the air is so thick, just because it's so humid. And people think, oh, Florida, you're at like all beaches and coastal breeze and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, it's like that on the coast, but you get in the middle of the state and it's just stagnant, wet air. I feel like you need a shower the moment you step out because you're sweating so much. And that can interfere with priming something fierce. It's the big reason why I don't use colored primers, gray primers, or white primers. And it feels to me like there is a tool that is outside of my arsenal. I don't like that one bit. I am Mr. Right tool for the right job, and the fact that there's stuff that I can't really do because of climate is irritating. Ilmarin says, I have one that I use brush on. I'm not 100% certain how I feel about it yet. Yeah, I've used brush on primer before, but it's the type of thing where I'm like, is this really the best way to do things? Because it just takes forever to do. I had a friend who was painting at the shop who had never even used a spray primer before. He was doing everything with a brush, and he's saying priming is so obnoxious, it takes forever. And I'm like, I have a can of primer here. I will go ahead and show you how you can take that thing that you're taking hours to do and do it in 20 seconds. Like, it irritates me so much when I see that stuff that just wastes so much time. Oh, I know what I'm going to do with this. All right. Well, so far he's looking actually pretty good. What? No, you're not a scrub. Come on. That is not the appropriate term, my friend. If you're just using techniques that are different, or you're not to a certain technique yet, or you haven't gotten to a tool, that does not make you a scrub. It just means that you've gotten to a certain point. I do not like self-depreciating humor in other people. Only I can do that. Most important thing is that you enjoy it. too much. That's the thing. I mean, like, I know it irritates me, and whenever I see people like using a tiny brush to do base coating or brushing on primer and that kind of stuff, but end of the day, if that is how you like it and that's how you get your results, vaya con Dios, mi amigo. You do you. Which is a very non-rock way of thinking. Haha, yeah, see? I told you I'd bring it around. Now we need to get some water in this red. Come on, let's do this. Yeah, I like doing this where, like, when you're doing the edge highlights, because so much of this stuff is right angles and squares, you go ahead and do them at one angle for the entire thing. You rotate the miniature in your hand, you do the next angle. It does help you speed things up. So Gimli says he thinks he'll bust the spray primer out to quickly prime some tanks for the Templar army. Yeah, do it, do it. At least try it out. I mean, see if you like it. See if you like it. Just give it a couple spritzes, see how it looks. I know once my CAV-CON order gets in, I'm going to have a whole lot more Malvernus to paint. Because how do you celebrate getting rid of your backlog? You add more backlog. All right, I think that's good to go on the edge highlighting for him. I'm going to touch up on the white in a little bit, but I think that is probably good for the red for... No, missing spots. Missing spots that... No, I didn't. They're just subtle. Ha, I wasn't wrong. Yeah. So he is looking with a nice, like... I do wish that you could see it better on the camera, but he's looking with that nice deep crimson. So let's go over and head back to our Tyrant. Now, this is where things are going to get fun. I don't know if I have the appropriate color I want to have for this guy, but he has the Cobalt scale, and I was thinking about trying moving up into a highlight of an orange-brown to kind of bring it into a little bit more of where that where this ogre skin is. So we're going to see. Now, this stuff is old paint, so it's a little bit thick, and I'm going to have to mix it. I'm going to have to really thin it down and get it properly mixed because it's kind of separating a little bit. So let's go ahead and add a bunch of water to thin this down and make it proper for edge highlighting. Yeah, Gimli says got a bunch of minis from something that he hasn't even touched yet. It's like, yeah, that is kind of like the curse of minis, especially if you back Kickstarters. It's one of the reasons why I'm trying to not back minis Kickstarters anymore. I get kind of mixed feelings on Kickstarter to begin with. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at 1 or 2 armor panels. Let's once again go in the back to see how this looks. Now, I am a fan of stark highlights for edge highlights, and even I think that is a little bit too light. That looks like a completely different color. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mix in some Cobalt scale to bring it down a little bit to closer to the base coat. And we're going to add it a little bit at a time because these tend to be stronger colors. Yeah, we got a little bit of that crimson. Let's add a little bit more Cobalt scale. I don't even know if this is going to work. I might need a completely different color. All right, I think that is... I think that's looking a bit better. Let's go ahead and see how that looks. Once again, we'll go ahead and keep it thin. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. So I think for that we got about a 50-50 mix of cobalt scale and orange brown. So let's go ahead, and I tend to in edge highlighting because my hands have a habit of going. I try to start with the more important things, but that's me overcoming shaky hands. Which I can already feel my hands starting to go, so. Unfortunately, this may be another time where I have to go ahead and finish up some of these edge highlights off stream after I wait for my hands to settle down. But I want to at least give you guys an idea of what this looks like on the stream so you can continue seeing process. Yeah, I found that most of the times, like, as much as people want to talk about technique and whatnot when it comes to painting and being productive, I've seen a lot of it come down to time management and prioritization. Like, a lot of times people will have the mentality of that you don't have time to paint, but people spend a lot of time watching TV or playing video games or that kind of stuff. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's wrong. It just means that's what you're prioritizing. If you prioritize your painting, you'll get more painting done. Personally, I try to paint every day. Haven't been terribly good at it lately just because of stress from the day job. But I'm hoping I can go ahead and have some change there. Get back in the saddle to doing my daily painting like I normally do. I mean, I'm pretty productive to begin with. I know I painted at least for myself, not including commissions, at least 30 miniatures a month this year. I'm trying to keep that pace up. I'd like to increase it. I'd like to be more in like 45, 50 territory. I am pleasantly surprised. I did not know if I was going to enjoy painting the rock aesthetic, and this guy is pretty stereotypical rock with a lot of those like rounded, curved edges. Oh, yeah. 136, and so he is actually looking pretty good right now. I'm happy with how he's turning out, which is good. That's important. It's important for the artist to feel happy about it. Now, I know a lot of times I like to paint these guys off their bases so I can get easier access to stuff, but I know, unfortunately, with some of the earlier CAV models where the plastic is a bit softer, I kind of need as much stability as possible, and the base provides that. Which I know that is not an issue anymore with dual cast, or the new PVC that the like Templars and Malvernus are made out of. That dual cast, oh man, painting that Tuseki, that was an absolute joy. That stuff is great to work with. I can't wait until the rest of the industry realizes what kind of stuff that Talon's doing. Because I think if Word of Dual Cast gets out, I think that's going to wind up becoming the new industry standard. It is just that good. It's like, hello, would you like all the benefits of a high-quality resin with none of the drawbacks? I'm sure you would. Here's Dual Cast. Can have aerial transports for the Rock and for the Malverns and that stuff, and I'm probably going to buy for the Vindicator just because it's a transport. I'm probably going to wind up picking up 10 of them. Maybe 12, so I could potentially have 2 full packs of infantry in aerial transports. Because that is my final goal for my Malvernus army. I'm going to have a finally painted. Ideally, I'm going to have painted 4 of each cav, 4 of each vehicle, and then I want to have 4 squads of each major type of infantry, but that might be a little bit too ambitious. There we go. No, I do think it would be a very, very interesting moment to be getting back to like rock culture. If the rock counterculture, like beatniks and hippies and all that kind of stuff, bears a lot more resemblance to the Terran counterculture than the Terrans would like to admit, I think that could lead to a very, very interesting dynamic with an underground peace movement happening. Okay, we're going to put a line going across here. All right. Okay, so that's probably good for that step. All right. What are we going to do next? We got polished bone, bleached linen is almost no difference. So I think I'm probably just going to have to leave that be. Let's go ahead and I got some cursed gold. I think I might have figured out that answer to what am I going to do about these rockets. at least on this one. Just to make him different enough. We're going to have just very, very fine, controlled, putting these dots of cursed gold here. There we go. It'll make that pop and stand out a little bit. All right, now this guy has a darker base, so we are going to go ahead and start moving on to metallic parts with blade steel. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, I am going to go ahead and take some golden blonde. Because it's going to take some time to dry, we are going to go and get some stuff on these bases. And I know, I remember yesterday somebody was asking me my opinion on fancy bases. I usually use bases as like a way to frame. I don't necessarily believe in. I know I like doing bases. I like doing fancier bases. But if I'm doing stuff for like a game, I tend to keep them a little bit more straight, simple. If I'm painting stuff for like an RPG miniature or whatnot, I will do fancier bases for that. But for these guys, we're going to go and put this golden blonde on here. These are both pretty dark miniatures. So as a contrast, I want the bases to be much lighter. All I've got on there is some ballast from Woodland Scenics that's been super glued down. I know I am very different than a lot of people when it comes to applying flock and ballast and whatnot, where I do not use PVA glue, I use super glue. I understand that PVA glue can hold it. I just never trust it. It always feels wrong to me. But we are going to go ahead and apply this golden blonde. It's going to be really, really thin down so that it flows into those that area, because when you apply ballast, you put a lot of surface area on there. We need a little bit more. So it's going to suck up paint, and it needs to flow into that as much as possible. Come on, don't clog up on me now. Yeah, there you go. We got a little bit more coming out. And once that's dry, we're going to do a wash. For this, we're probably just going to do a simple sepia. Oh man, guys, we are got 15 minutes left. We are coming down to the wire on the end of my stream. All right, so that'll go ahead and get that drying. That'll help us out. That's the notification I'm hearing so much. All right, so we got, let's go ahead and, we got that. We're going to go and move to the blade steel. So blade steel, which is a good general metallic. Shaky, shaky, shaky. And let's start applying this to the metal bits. We want to be very, very fine and controlled on this, so we're going to stick with our size 0. Now, I like to do metal anywhere there would be like a coolant vent or heat sink or joints if you can get it in there. I like weapons being metal. I do get the idea the Rock use a lot more metal in their cabs than like the A&Es do, and even the Terrans. Those with like the higher technological base, I get the idea that most of the stuff would be more like a space age ceramic and stuff. I'm sure Cab Boss could enlighten me if that is the case, but that is always how I think of it. Let's go and put this kind of like vented area up here also as metal. There you go. All right, just a little bit of washing, and that Conqueror is pretty close to done. And we got to do the cockpit work too. Can't forget the cockpit work. Let's get these guns. Guns, guns, guns. Guns, glorious guns. What are these guns on the Tyrant? I did not look it up before I started the stream. These Max, or are these lasers? Are they... I'm not sure. What am I doing? Why are you not by the drying fan? Yeah, and let's dot those missiles. Talent Games Online, look good, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment. I really like this. I really like how this guy's turning out. I like the color scheme. I might have to do more about this. So since you're on Talent Games Official, so just for my reference, because I did not look it up before the stream because I'm a bad streamer, what are these guns on the Tyrant? Are those lasers? Are those Max? So I might do something different if they're lasers. Okay, let's get this stuff in. This guy's got some more of a exposed joints, which that's one of the things I like the idea of, like Rock technology looking a little bit simpler with like, oh, they're they're PBGs. Awesome. I know exactly what I'm going to do for them then. Yeah, lots of PBGs. That is very, very rock of them. All right. Cool. All right, we got that on there. Let's go ahead and get this cockpit taken care of. I want to get this cockpit situation under control. We have up from, where is the Dark Elf Shadow? That's Schwarzenwald. Come on. You know what? That'll work. Schwarzenwald Gray. We got some Dark Elf Shadow on. We got some on the palette. Good. Even better. Let's go ahead and move up to a. We did the bleached linen. That's right. Let's pull in all the cockpits we're currently working on. Okay, that is about a 2575 bleached linen Dark Elf Shadow. Four PBGs, one guided missile, one rocket, one machine gun. Guns, 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 glorious guns. Okay, there we go. Next, we're going to go ahead and move up to the 50-50 mix of the those two. Also still nice and thinned down. And this guy, we're going to go ahead and apply thinner. Now when I'm doing this, I'm applying each layer progressively, that's progressively lighter, to less and less of the cockpit. Now we need to be really fine, so we're going to go and do the area that's going to be about a 75-25. It's going to be more of like a lining. All right, and then we're going to finish it off. A couple very small individual dots of the pure bleached linen. Only at the most raised areas of these cockpits. There we go. Put you over there. All right, we are moving along really well. We've only got 3 minutes left, so I think I'm probably going to have to call it. I don't have a ton more left to do on these guys. I'm going to go and sit here and keep working on it while, even though my end of the stream is just about over. But let's go ahead and do as much as I can in these last 3 minutes. Yeah, the Imlerin says the tire is what happens when the rock hits a gun buffet. I like that. So CAV official, I don't know if I'm just going to be turning off my stream or if I'm raiding into somebody else. Yeah, crap, that wasn't completely dry yet. Okay, great. All right. So I'll go ahead and raid in if you want me to, or otherwise just sign off. But hopefully, hopefully you guys learned something. We got these guys just about done. We got just a little bit of wash work left to do on both the Conqueror and the Tyrant, but I think they're looking pretty good. I really like the color scheme on this Tyrant. I think I'm going to go ahead and keep duplicating that for myself. Just end stream and type raid Wellforged when ready. Outstanding. I will go do that in just one moment. Well, guys, I hope everybody enjoyed this. I know this has been an absolute delight for me. I got pleased as pop when I got invited to go ahead and join the fine folks at Talon Game for CAV-CON. This is probably the most fun I've had on my stream so far. I'm still relatively new to the streaming business, but it's been a blast. The CAV community is so welcoming. I know it's a smaller game, but it is fantastic, and I hope nothing but the best for John and the entire CAV crew. The models they put out are fantastic. This brush is dead. I'm throwing you away. And I just want to, I can't express how grateful I am for this opportunity to be able to go ahead and do this stuff. It's fun. It's wonderful being able to converse with you guys. Let's go ahead and, yeah. All right. So for now, everybody, this is Party Bear signing off. Be good to each other. And as the box says, every order from Talon Games, keep calm and play more CAV.